Chapter 476, A Trip to Sword Suppression Valley. Su Ming is one of the 9 sovereigns and a personal disciple of the Sword Ancestor. After the Sword Ancestor died, the bloodline of the Sword Ancestor collapsed. Countless experts, including the Sword Ancestor's personal disciples and 7 Sword Emperors, were killed. If Su Ming really is the Sword Ancestor's personal disciple, how can it be impossible that he has survived? Unless... Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and thought of one possibility. When he was in the Ancestor's land, Mu Shan mentioned a traitor of the bloodline of the Sword Ancestor. Mu Shan said the traitor memorized all the 9 moves of the heart-killing sword technique. Although Mu Shan casually talked about it, Jian Wushuang still kept that in mind. Now the young man started wondering if Su Ming was the traitor. Spirit Lord did not know what Jian Wushuang was thinking about and continued speaking. As the first magic weapon of the sword principle, the heart-killing sword is extremely powerful. Except for the Sword Ancestor, no one is able to control it. What's more, the heart-killing sword is a sword of killing with a mighty killing intent. Master Su Ming could only suppress it in Sword Suppression Valley. By the way, that's why the valley has such a name. The heart-killing sword usually remains quiet, but it shakes violently every 100 years. Even Sir Su Ming is unable to suppress it. However, when its sword essence sweeps out and thousands of swords salute, it will be a precious opportunity for any sword principle warrior. Thousands of swords salute. Jian Wushuang asked in surprise. .bg container 63275 CC1F display, flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important Sir Su Ming is broad-minded. He will invite many sword principle experts to Sword Suppression Valley before the heart-killing sword shakes violently. This time, Sir Su Ming also invites sword principle experts to this meeting, Spirit Lord said. Our Marquis is not a sword principle warrior, but as a Marquis, he has also received the invitation. Master Su Ming asked our Marquis to recommend 3 sword principle experts. Hunjian Lord and Tanming Lord are on the list. And as for the last one, I recommended you to our Marquis. Jian Wushuang finally understood why Spirit Lord had come here. Swordsman, would you like to go to Sword Suppression Valley? Spirit Lord asked with a smile. Of course I'd like to. Jian Wushuang nodded without hesitation. Spirit Lord was not surprised by his reply. It would be a great opportunity for any sword principle warrior to watch the heart-killing sword shake and see thousands of swords salute. No one would refuse it. However, Spirit Lord did not know that the main reason Jian Wushuang accepted the invitation was that the heart-killing sword was the Sword Ancestor's magic weapon and that he was a descendant of the bloodline of the Sword Ancestor. In that case, you can make some preparations and then go with me, Spirit Lord said. Jian Wushuang nodded, called Bing Hui to come in, and gave him some orders. Then, he left with Spirit Lord. After traveling for a short while, they found themselves in front of a magnificent palace. The moment Jian Wushuang stepped into it, he saw a young man in a long silver robe, whose eyes sparkled with magic. Marquis. Both Spirit Lord and Jian Wushuang simultaneously addressed the young man. The silver-robed young man looked at Jian Wushuang and asked, "Are you swordsman? Spirit Lord often talks about you. Our camp has many lords, but a Saint Realm expert can actually become a lord, and you're the only one." Spirit Lord has overestimated me, Jian Wushuang replied with modesty. Marquis Piaoxue did not respond to this but simply waved his hands while saying, "Sit down please." Jian Wushuang sat by a long narrow table and immediately greeted the 2 lords beside him. Hunjian Lord, Qianming Lord. In a polite manner, Hujian Lord and Qianming Lord, who had been awaiting his arrival, looked over at him and replied in succession, "Bloodsword Lord." Then, Marquis Piaoxue spoke again. "You should have heard about this already. Master Su Ming sent me the invitation personally, so I don't dare to take it lightly. The 3 of you are the strongest sword principle experts in our camp, so don't make me lose face." "We'll do our best," Jian Wushuang and the other 2 lords responded. "All right." Marquis Piaoxue nodded, took out a token, and gave it to Hunjian Lord. "In half a month, Sword Suppression Valley will open. You should set out as soon as possible." Jian Wushuang and the other two lords looked at each other, bowed, and left. After they left the palace, the three lords got together. Hunjian Lord, you have been there before. Tell us more about Sword Suppression Valley, Qianming Lord said. Hunjian Lord had visited Sword Suppression Valley the last time it opened. It will take us several days to get there. Let's talk about it on the road, Hunjian Lord replied with a smile. Then, the three of them headed for Sword Suppression Valley. The reopening of Sword Suppression Valley provided a great opportunity for numerous sword principle experts in the Divine Land. Therefore, it also attracted the attention of other sword principle experts. 72 marquises all received the invitations from Master Su Ming, who was one of the 9 sovereigns. No one dared to refuse him, so each of the marquises recommended their 3 most excellent sword principle experts. Besides them, many solitary sword principle experts who were not under the control of the marquises but were famous for sword principle also received invitations. At that moment, a figure stood on an unknown mountain, which was outside of the territories that the 72 marquises controlled. He had a long sword on his back. Having silver-white hair and a mustache, he looked as if he had experienced many vicissitudes of life. His deep eyes seemed to contain an endless void. He sat with his legs crossed as he drank. Swish, 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 swish. The sound of wind breaking resounded. Instantly, a dozen figures appeared around the white-haired man. Those figures all were lords with mighty auras. They were led by a muscular elder superior lord. The leader looked at the white-haired man with a flicker of killing intent in his eyes. Jian Nantian, you won't escape this time. Chapter 477, The Barrier. Escape. The white-haired man, who casually sat drinking, raised his head and his thoughtful dark eyes fell on the muscular elder. He continued, I never did anything like that. Since that's the case, I'll be sending you to hell. The elder roared and billowed forward like flowing smoke. The men with the elder started attacking as well. At this moment, as the white-haired man finally stood up, a sliver of light shot out. At the same time, he drew his long sword and an immense sword essence immediately began to flow. A Dao weapon. Seeing the weapon the man held, the elder and the nearby lords looked greedy. They began fighting instantly. A fierce battle broke out in the blink of an eye. However, it only took a moment for the battle to be settled. The BG container 63275C1F display, flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important on the hill, the white-haired man sheathed his sword and took out his wine again. Standing still, he looked up into the boundless sky, emotionless. Around him lay piles of bodies. The elder, a superior lord, was among them as well. It has been nearly 5 years. Did he achieve his goal of exterminating Holy Emperor Palace? The white-haired man murmured. At this moment, while thinking about this person he spoke of, he finally began to smile. Sword Suppression Valley, located among an unbroken string of mountains, was famous for suppressing the heart-killing sword. Usually, the valley was quiet, but with the 100-year event drawing near, the valley had recently become crowded. At the edge of the valley, there was a towering group of palaces. Naturally, this was where Su Ming, one of the 9 sovereigns, lived. In one of the palaces, a woman's voice was heard. Your Highness, the news from the guards says that a lot of warriors have gathered outside the valley, a purple-clothed woman said respectfully. She was talking to the handsome man in front of her. The man was so good-looking that many ladies would feel ashamed when looking at him. With his eminent status and overwhelming power, he was definitely a prominent figure. He was Su Ming, a man who was second only to the 3 ancestors and a personal disciple of the sword ancestor. Tell them to open the array and let the experts in. Make sure they are well received, Su Ming ordered, with a voice that was both attractive and stunning. Understood, Your Highness. The purple-clothed woman nodded. She took her eyes, which were filled with fervor and worship, off the man and left. Su Ming was left alone. He stood in silence with his hands behind him, his eyes fixed on a painting at the top of the palace. The painting was of an old man standing on a peak. While holding a long sword in his hand, The old man was looking down over everything with sharp eyes as if he stood above the whole world. Old man. Su Ming stared at the elder in the painting, his face twitched, and his eyes filled with hatred. It was really malicious of you to leave a fatal flaw in the heart-killing sword. However, I was lucky, so that trick didn't kill me. I guess that move is the last trump card of the heart-killing sword, right? Wait and see. Before long, I will take control of the heart-killing sword and replace you, then I will be the new sword ancestor. Buzz. Suddenly, a wide channel appeared on the array in front of the warriors that had gathered at the valley entrance, and several people, led by the purple-clothed woman, walked out. So sorry to keep you waiting. Now, please come over here and show me your Marquis's token, said the woman. Following those words, the warriors formed a line and walked forward. Some of them had won some fame, but they all remained discreet and obedient when in the Sword Suppression Valley. After all, they were in a place ruled by Su Ming, one of the 9 sovereigns. Su Ming was powerful and had a good reputation. He did not have to invite the experts to his valley and share the rare opportunity involving the heart-killing sword's awakening with them, but he did. He even held a sword principal meeting for all the experts. Among the experts who were walking towards the woman one after another, Jian Wushuang, Hunjian Lord, and Qianming Lord were also waiting in line. While they were waiting, they noticed that not everyone was allowed to enter the valley. The conditions to enter the valley included an invitation or one of the 72 Marquise's tokens, as well as one's own level of power. To the entry stood a golden puppet fighter, and the experts had to defeat the puppet to enter the valley. This was something like a test for entering the valley. In fact, everyone who had made their way to the valley was excellent in sword principle and should be able to pass this test. Otherwise, they would only embarrass themselves. This was also the reason why Marquis Piaoxue had chosen the 3 quotas with caution. No matter how many opportunities the chosen ones could get, he had to be sure they were good enough to at least get into the valley. Soon it was Jian Wushuang's and the 2 lords' turn. We're the underlings of Marquis Piaoxue, and these are our tokens. Hunjian Lord handed the 3 tokens to the purple-clothed woman. Fine. Then please have a try. The woman nodded to them and pointed at the puppet. Jian Wushuang and the lords exchanged a glance. Hunjian Lord was the first one to take his turn, and he quickly found himself in a fierce battle with the puppet. When fighting with the puppet, the realm, cultivation, power, or comprehension in origin would not matter, only one's achievement in sword principle. Hunjian Lord effortlessly defeated the puppet with his 2nd-grade sword soul. Then it was Qianming Lord's turn. Though he had not awakened his sword soul yet, he had good achievements in sword principle and had mastered many 1st-grade sword techniques. After exchanging several moves with the puppet, he was able to beat it. Finally, it was Jian Wushuang's turn. Chapter 478. 3 Sword Souls. Jian Wushuang planned to use his full strength against the puppet. Buzz. An enormous sword essence surged out as 2 giant sword soul phantoms appeared behind Jian Wushuang. The phantoms were almost 30 meters tall and contained a mighty sword essence. With the power of the sword souls, Jian Wushuang quickly defeated the puppet. The experts in the line were amazed when they saw Jian Wushuang's sword soul phantoms and how he defeated the puppet. Double sword souls, each 30 meters tall. Those are double 1st-grade sword souls. He has double 1st-grade sword souls? He is so talented. The experts discussed in amazement. Seeing Jian Wushuang's sword souls, the purple-clothed woman could not help but nod to herself. The representatives sent by Marquis Piaoxue are indeed powerful. You 3, please go this way. VG container 63275 CC1F display, flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important. Jian Wushuang, Hunjian Lord, and Qianming Lord immediately followed the path and entered Sword Suppression Valley. As soon as they entered the valley, someone came to guide them. Look, that is where the heart-killing sword is suppressed. Hunjian Lord pointed at a huge mountain in the distance. The mountain was shaped like a volcano, with a huge hole at the center, and the heart-killing sword was placed at the bottom. At his first glance of the mountain, Jian Wushuang felt an obscure sword essence coming from the bottom. The sword essence was like a sleeping dragon. Once it woke up, the world would be shaken. With that, Jian Wushuang also sensed the triple kill sword on his back start to quiver. Hey! Jian Wushuang looked confused and tried his best to calm the sword down by holding the hilt tightly. In the end, he had to put the sword in his interspatial ring. Why is the triple kill sword so excited? Jian Wushuang pondered. The sword had been with him since long ago when he left Sword Marquis Mansion and ventured to the outside world. It was like his dearest comrade, but he had never seen the sword become so excited before. Yes, so excited that it was as if it was meeting family. The triple kill sword is a token to enter the ancestors' land. It may be related to the heart-killing sword somehow. Jian Wushuang thought. Sir, those are your residences. 3 days from now, the heart-killing sword will wake up. Before that time, please concede to stay here. The attendant led them to a yard with many rooms. The rooms were made especially for the invited experts. Thanks. Hunjian Lord thanked the attendant. After the attendant left, Jian Wushuang and the lords gathered by a table in the room. Swordsman, Qianming Lord, get yourselves prepared in the next 3 days. We can't miss the rare opportunity of the heart-killing sword's awakening, said Hunjian Lord. Among the three, Hunjian Lord was the only one that had been here before. Hunjian Lord, I've heard that at that time there will be 1,000 sword salute here. What exactly is that like? What kind of opportunity are we looking at? Asked Qianming Lord. Well. After a moment of pondering, Hunjian Lord continued, I don't know how to describe it. It's a unique experience, so you will have to see it for yourself at that time. After hearing your words, I can't wait for the sword principal meeting to begin, Qianming Lord said and smiled. Jian Wushuang showed a faint smile as well. He shared the Lord's feeling. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these last few days, experts from every corner kept rushing to the valley. At this moment, outside the valley, a ragged man with a weather-beaten face walked forward slowly. He had a long sword on his back and looked like he was middle-aged, but his hair was grey. The man arrived at the entrance to the valley. Sir, please show me your invitation, said the purple-clothed woman. I don't have such a thing, the man answered. The women pulled her face. The surrounding experts' eyes immediately fell on the man. The Sword Suppression Valley was not accessible to everyone. Those who were in the valley were either recommended by their marquis or famous throughout the Divine Land and received an invitation from Su Ming. Without a recommendation or an invitation, one could not enter. So, without an invitation, I can't get in, asked the man in a flat tone. That's not completely true. The woman shook her head and added, Lord Su Ming has proclaimed that everyone with high achievements in sword principle will be allowed into the valley on condition that they can prove themselves. The man looked indifferent upon hearing the woman's words, but behind him, an overwhelming sword essence shot up, along with 3 towering figures. There were 3 sword soul phantoms standing side by side, and the center one was a first-grade sword soul that was over 30 meters high. On the left and right, the other 2 phantoms guarded the center one. They were over 24 meters tall and were second-grade sword souls. The 3 phantoms were surging with sword essence, enough to shock anyone in the world. He has 3 sword souls. Gosh! Who is he? The experts were aghast when they saw this scene. So was the women. How could he have 3 sword souls? The awakening of sword soul depended on one's talent in sword principle. An ordinary expert might awaken 1 sword soul at best, and in such cases, they would be called a genius. When the sword ancestors' bloodline was at its peak, there had been a few people who had awoken their sword souls over the decades. The people with 2 sword souls had been even fewer. As for those with 3 sword souls, they were monsters. Now, can I get in? The man's voice echoed through the valley. Chapter 479, A Fascinating Blow. After a moment of silence, the purple-clothed woman nodded while saying, Since you have awakened 3 sword souls, you are definitely qualified for the sword principal meeting. The woman let the white-haired man pass. That made sense because few among the participants of the meeting had awakened even 1 sword soul, let alone 2. There were only 3 of them with 2 souls, including Jian Wushuang. The white-haired man was the first participant that had 3 sword souls so far. Being such a genius, the man was definitely qualified to join the meeting. While the man was heading towards Sword Suppression Valley, 2 intense gazes landed on him. He is Jian Nantian. Blood Mountain Marquis is looking all over the place for him. Who would think that he would come here? He really has guts. If only I could kill him. The 2 people currently talking were participants of the Sword Principle meeting as well, and both of them were experts in Sword Principle. They stared at the white-haired man intensely, like they were staring at some kind of treasure. It was a beautiful night. Jian Wushuang sat on the bed with his legs crossed. In front of him, the triple kill sword shivered violently and restlessly. BG container 63275 CC1F display, flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important 3 days have passed and it's still the same. Jian Wushuang looked at the sword and shook his head. Right then, a booming sound echoed through the silent night like thunder. Along with the sound, an overwhelming energy also swept over the area. Jian Wushuang raised his head in astonishment. Is a battle taking place here? He immediately put the triple kill sword back into his interspatial ring and left the room. Hunjian Lord exited his room as well. What's going on? Is there someone who dares to make trouble here? We're in Sword Suppression Valley, a place ruled by Su Ming, aren't we? Let's go and find out. Jian Wushuang, Hunjian Lord, and Qianming Lord rushed out and headed towards the sound. The boom had alarmed everyone in the valley and a lot of experts had exited their rooms and moved towards the area. They could see 3 people standing side by side on a roof with their strong aura radiating outwards. The air surrounding them was filled with killing intent. Among the 3, 2 were superior lords, and the last was an advanced lord. Opposite the lords was a man with an ethereal aura, his white hair fluttering with the wind, and his hand behind his back. His long shadow under the moon gave him the appearance of a towering figure. He is. When Jian Wushuang caught the sight of the man, his eyes flickered with joy and surprise. Go to hell. Suddenly, the 3 lords shouted and drifted towards the man like ghosts. The moment they moved, the white-haired man acted as well. As he removed his long sword from his back, a surging power erupted from the blade. A Dao weapon. Is that sword a Dao weapon? How could a lord have such a weapon? The power of the sword shocked the experts who were watching, and their gazes were filled with greed. All of the people in the surroundings were experts in Sword Principle, so that sword, a Dao weapon, drove them crazy. 3 sword soul phantoms rose up when the white-haired man unsheathed his sword. The tallest phantom was 30 meters high and seemed as if it was overlooking everything. The white-haired man made his move. It was a casual blow. A dazzling arc of light ran down the blade, so bright and fascinating that every onlooker was drawn to it. The experts were taken aback by the scene. They were being drawn into what they were seeing. Even the 3 lords, who were going to attack the man, were distracted by the fascinating blow. Before they could come back to their senses, the sword slashed their throats at an amazing speed. PSSSH. 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 With 3 sounds of a sword slashing flesh, the 3 lords stopped moving, frozen with horrified looks on their faces. The white-haired man resheathed his sword. The 3 lords' dead bodies fell backward to the ground once the sword was returned to its sheath. Horror. Shock. Those were the onlookers feeling. This man killed 2 superior lords and 1 advanced lord with 1 strike. How powerful. Is he a marquis? His attack was so stunning yet so terrifying. Everyone was filled with amazement. This guy. Hunjian Lord and Qianming Lord widened their eyes. However, after seeing how the man killed those 3 guys, Jian Wushuang touched his nose with an odd look on his face. Boom! Suddenly, several figures with powerful auras approached the white-haired man, and the leading person was the purple-clothed woman, who had guided them into the valley. The woman had an unhappy expression on her face when she saw the dead bodies on the ground. Sir, you showed no respect to my lord by killing his guests under his eyes, the women scolded. The onlookers immediately looked toward the man. The man fetched out a bottle of wine, took a seat on the roof, and started drinking. He showed no emotion to the woman's words as he replied, "They wanted to kill me, so I killed them." His words were flat and indifferent but stunned the woman. The onlookers put on a quaint face when they heard his words. Killing at will was not allowed in the valley. However, if it was a self-defense, it could be forgiven. After all, no one would just watch his opponents kill him without doing anything. Everyone present had seen the three lords try to kill the man and how the man defended himself by killing them. Chapter 480, Father and Son. The purple-clothed woman stared at the white-haired man for a long time before saying, "Sir, if I'm not mistaken, you're the famous Xianxia, aren't you?" "He is Xianxia." The name caused an uproar among the experts. "This is beyond my expectations. I heard that he killed all three of Blood Mountain Marquis's sworn brothers and enraged him. The Lord is looking all over the place for him." "I heard that too. What's more, the Lord also said that whoever brings him Xianxia's head will be given a Dao weapon." No wonder the three dead lords had wanted to kill him. They were after the reward, and maybe Xianxia's long sword as well since it's also a Dao weapon. That's to say, killing him can earn us 2 Dao weapons. Well, I really admire his courage. He has enraged one of the top 2 marquis, but he still dares to participate in this public meeting. If I were him, I would hide somewhere or simply leave the divine land and become a local lord in the outside world. Discussions were heard continuously, mixed with wondering words. .bg container 63275cc1f display, flex direction, column align items, center justify content, center Z index, 214-748-3647. Important. Many people at present had heard of Xianxia before. Those who had not finally known about him more or less from the discussion. When they learned that they could gain 2 Dao weapons by killing Xianxia, their eyes betrayed their frenzied desire to kill him. "Father." Jian Wushuang looked at the white-haired man in surprise. The man was none other than his father, Xianxia. It had been 5 years since he last saw his father. Now, they had finally met again. However, Xianxia kept drinking in silence and did not seem to care about the discussions all these people were having on him. The purple-clothed woman was not annoyed at the man's cold manner and said with a smile, "Since you were forced to do so, I will have to let it go then." She looked around and continued, "Ladies and gentlemen, as all of you were invited here as my lord's guests, so be a guest. Whoever makes trouble during the sword principal meeting will be my lord's enemy." The words echoed through the valley and intimidated the experts, forcing them to calm down. They finally realized that they were at a place ruled by Su Ming and anything that crossed the line would be regarded as a challenge against the Lord's authority. Despite this, not everyone could ignore the temptation of 2 Dao weapons. For the sake of Su Ming, they would put the desire aside until the meeting was over, but after that, they would not hesitate to kill Xianxia. Well, the sword principal meeting will begin tomorrow, so everyone should go back and rest well. Having said this, the woman was the first one to leave with her group. The experts headed back as well. "Let's go back too," Hunjian Lord said to Jian Wushuang. "Sorry, you go first. I have something to do here," Jian Wushuang replied. Hunjian Lord shot Jian Wushuang a surprised glance, but he didn't say anything more and left with Qianming Lord. Soon, the valley was quiet again. A bright moon was high in the sky, causing the ground to be slightly illuminated by the moonlight. Under the moon, Xianxia sat alone on the roof, drinking. His shadow was long and his hair was waving with the wind, giving him an ethereal look. A figure approached him from behind. Xianxia looked back and saw Jian Wushuang. The emotionless man finally showed a smile. "Father," Jian Wushuang called in a soft voice. "Come here, take a seat." Xianxia threw the wine to Jian Wushuang and added, "Have a drink with me." Jian Wushuang caught the wine and sat beside his father. "You've grown a lot during the last few years." Xianxia stared at Jian Wushuang with a grin. "Not as much as you have, father," Jian Wushuang said and smiled. He knew very well that even though he had made good progress and was considered an expert in the divine land, he still could not hold a candle to his father. At least, he could not display an attack as fascinating as the one his father had just shown. Currently, without external forces, I can battle an advanced lord, but there is a long way to go before I can kill a superior lord and 2 advanced lords with 1 strike, as father has done.
Jian Wushuang thought.
I thought it would be 10 years before I saw you again, but it's only been less than half of that, hasn't it? Said Jian Nantian.
Yes, father.
Jian Wushuang answered and smiled. Holy Emperor Palace has been destroyed, right? His father asked. Yes, it was destroyed 3 years ago, Jian Wushuang answered.
Really?
Jian Nantian raised his brows. That means it only took you 2 years to destroy it after I left. Well done, son. Much sooner than I had expected.
Not bad.
Jian Wushuang grinned. The father and the son chatted while drinking under the moon. When in front of strangers, Jian Wushuang was always aloof and would only be more sociable to his friends. However, at this moment, with his father, he was unrestrained and behaved like a child. As for his father, Jian Nantian, who took nothing heart except his sword, he regarded Jian Wushuang as being more important than himself and his sword. Father, why did they say that you offended Marquis Xiefeng? Jian Wushuang suddenly changed the topic. Marquis Xiefeng. Jian Nantian answered while smiling, there is no need to be afraid of him. We should pay more attention to Su Ming. Su Ming. Jian Wushuang looked grave. Is he really the person who betrayed the sword ancestor?